We have Muslims that break family ties. Over what? Over the simplest arguments. Over the most absurd arguments. If you were to ask them, someone who's broken family ties, what was the reason that you broke your family ties with your brothers in Pakistan, for example, your brother in India, your brother in Lebanon, your brother in that country? Oh, it was so long ago we don't remember. It was so long ago we don't remember. If you don't remember what's causing you or what's stopping you to make the connection again. Here in this country, family ties are broken over something that you can talk about. Family ties. Why are family ties important? Why is Sila Rahim important? Why is Qat'a Rahim important? When you look at the narrations, a companion of Imam Jafar Sadiq alaykum salam wa rahmatullah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. A companion of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he came to him and Imam, he looks at him and he says, the Imam looks at his companion and he says to him, your deeds, your amal were brought to me last Thursday. Your amal were brought to me last Thursday. And I'm telling you that there's one amal of yours that I'm very happy about, that I was very happy to see. And it was the Sila Rahim that you did with your aunt. The Sila Rahim. One, the narrations tells us what? That every Thursday, the amal that we do gets taken to who? The Imam of the time. The Imam of the time sees every amal that we do. And out of all of the amal that this companion, this Sahabi of Imam Jafar Sadiq did, the Imam says what? He says that I'm proud. Why? Because of the Sila Rahim that you did. The Sila Rahim that you did. The seventh Imam, a companion comes to him. The Imam, he says to that companion, because of the Qat'a Rahim, you and your brother, you fought over inheritance. And this is something that people fight over. Inheritance. They break up family relations. Why? Because of inheritance. Imam, he says, because of the Qat'a Rahim that you did over inheritance, your brother will die on the journey that he's at. Your brother will die on the journey that he's at. He won't make it back home safely. Why? Because of the Qat'a Rahim. And the companion, he asked the Imam, Mullah, when am I going to die? Imam, he says that your death was also near. Because of the Sila Rahim that you did, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased your lifespan by 3 months. Your death was also near, but because of the Sila Rahim that you did with your aunt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased your lifespan by 3 months. So what does this tell you? Sila Rahim increases lifespan. Qat'a Rahim decreases life. Sila Rahim gives you more barakat. Qat'a Rahim takes away those barakat. The Holy Prophet, he says what? Anyone that takes steps to make these family ties stronger, for every step that they take, they get the sawab of a shaheed. For every step that they take, whether these steps are figurative steps or these steps are literal steps, that doesn't matter. For every step that this person takes to reconnect with family members, the Holy Prophet says what? For every step, they get the sawab of a shaheed. Not only do they get the sawab of a shaheed, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes down 40,000 hasanat in his book of deeds. He erases 40,000 sins from the book of deeds. And he elevates his daraja, he elevates his status 40,000 levels. For what? Only taking the steps. Only taking the steps. So when this person finally becomes the cause or the reason to increase or strengthen those family relations, how much more sawab do you think this person is going to get? How much more sawab does he need when he's getting the sawab of a shaheed for every step. This is how much Islam has emphasized family relations. This is how much Islam has emphasized keeping ties together. But what happens living in this society, or Pakistan, India society? Parents, they cut off ties with their children over absurd matters. Absurd, what do I mean? You didn't become a doctor, that's it. You didn't become an engineer, that's it. You didn't marry your cousin. Marriage is one of the reasons people cut off family ties. I'm sorry, but I need to be honest, but in our culture, marriage is a big reason that people cut off family ties. 90%, mashallah. Marriage is a big reason that people cut off family ties. For what? For what? The person that's getting married has a right to choose who they're getting married to. In Islam, there is no forcing marriage upon everyone. Oh, they didn't marry my nephew. They didn't marry my niece. You didn't marry them. What is this? You didn't become a doctor. You didn't become an engineer. Are these the only two professions that Islam needs? In this day and age, does Islam not need more than doctors? I'm not saying that, you know what, you shouldn't be a doctor. No, I'm not saying that. By all means, be a doctor. By all means, be a doctor. But does everyone in the family need to be a doctor? No. Especially in this day and age, they asked Sayyid Sistani, Westerners, when they came to him to give them some advice. And he says, do you guys know why, for example, Christians are so successful? Or do you guys know why Jews are so successful? And they say, why? He says, if you look at their family, everyone in their family has a different profession. In one family, you'll have a doctor, you'll have a lawyer, you'll have someone that works in media, you'll have someone that works in politics. Everyone has a different field. If you look at the Pakistani Indian community, everyone is a doctor. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But in this day and age, do we also not need someone that goes into media to propagate the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? We do. We do. Do we also not need lawyers that will help mu'mineen out when they're in need of help? We do. So do we also not need all these other professions? We do. So why are the parents just insisting that you either become a doctor or you become an engineer? And if the children don't agree, that's it. Get out of my house. That's it, you're done. No. And inshallah, if I ever come again, the rights of a child and the rights of a parent. And the society that we live in, the parents, they want to impose the culture that was given to them onto the child. The culture, not the religion, I'm talking about the culture. The child, they're fighting back. Why? Because the culture that they live in is completely different from the culture that their parents lived in. For the parents, what does Amir al-Mu'mineen say? He says, look, you were born for a different time. Your children are born for a different time. That's simple. Just think about that. You were born for a different time, meaning what? The time period that we're living in. We were born for this time period. The adults were born for this time period. The next generation was born for what? The time period after us. The time period after us. So what is Imam saying? Don't try to raise your kids the way that you were raised. Why? Because the time has changed. Try to raise them the way this time tells you to raise them. What do I mean? Most of us that grew up in Pakistan, especially the elders, they know how strict the parents were. They know how strict the parents were. And even today in Pakistan, in the schools, everyone knows how strict the teachers are. That strictness does not exist here in the country that we live in. Correct? Does that type of strictness that is in Pakistan, India, those countries, does it benefit the child? That amount of strictness. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be strict. No, that amount of strictness, where I remember myself, 5 years old, going to school, and I know the elders know this too. When I went to school at the age of 5 in kindergarten, my nails were not cut. And they check every day. They used to check every day. So my nails were not cut. And what did they do? What did they do? When they asked me, you didn't cut your... Exactly. See, you all know. When they asked me, why didn't you cut your nails? A kid, I just said, I did. They just grew on the way. They grew on the way to school. So the teacher, she gets angry. What does she do? The yardstick, not even a ruler, the yardstick comes out. The elders know exactly what I'm talking about. That type of discipline does not exist here. And to be honest, that type of discipline, it might work, it might not. Yes, it worked for me. I made sure that I had my nails cut afterwards, but it doesn't always work. It gets to a point where they're left with bruises. And Islam says that is not allowed. That is not allowed. And some of the youngsters, they asked me this question, and I myself was thinking, what's going on for them to ask me this question? But they asked me the question nonetheless. But Islam allows for discipline. It does. But it also says you make sure that you avoid the face and you make sure you do not leave a mark. Islam. But in Islamic countries, the first thing they attack is the face, and they make sure that they leave a mark. Why? Because they think that that's the only way that you'll understand. That's the only way that you will know. That's the only way that you will learn. Correct? And this type of discipline, because the elders grew up with this discipline in Pakistan, they bring this type of discipline to this society. And then they realize, or they ask, why aren't my children doing what I'm saying? Why aren't my children being obedient? It doesn't work if you're that strict. And it doesn't work if you completely just let them do whatever you want. Islam is what? The name of that religion that is between two extremes. It's the middle path. When they need to be disciplined, by all means discipline them, but discipline them the way Islam has told you to discipline them. Not the way you were disciplined in your culture. Not the way you were disciplined back home. No, the way Islam has told you to discipline them. And that's where the disconnect is. And because of that disconnect, what ends up happening? These children, they grow up, qat'i rahim. Qat'i rahim. Who's to blame them? Is it just the child? Or no, does the parent also have a hand in this? Because they're the ones that push the child away. They also have a hand. But at the same time, the children also need to know that even though if the parents do that, that means what? That means that you left them no other option. If it gets to that point, that means that you left them no other option. I understand that they should be careful. They should have control and everything. I completely understand that. But everyone's human. They lose control. They lose control. But should that continue to happen? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know we have psychologists, we have psychiatrists that are sitting here. They know, they've read the books about what happens to a child's psyche when they're constantly abused, when they're constantly hit. They know. They know better than me. Because the studies are out there. But Islam is the name of that religion that is walking that middle path. The same for the children. When the parents ask you to do something, just do it. Do it. And the parents, if the children want to do something that is Islamic, that doesn't contradict any Islamic laws, if they want to do it, let them do it. There's give and take here. But one side just wants to take, but they don't want to give. And then the friction starts. That's where the qat'i rahim starts. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And when it comes to qat'i rahim, a man, he came to the Holy Prophet, he asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what is the worst sin that a person can commit? And the Holy Prophet says, shirk. The man continues to ask. And then he came to a point where he says, qat'i rahim. And he asked him, they asked Imams, what are the effects of qat'i rahim? And the Imams, the Prophet tells them what? One of the effects, there are three sins whose effects that you will see in this world. Meaning what? The punishment for these three sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meets them out in this world. He doesn't wait until the afterlife. Three sins. And when they were asked, what sins are those? They said, first is false testimony. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. One is false testimony. Two is judgment that isn't based on Quran, judgment that isn't based on the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Three is qat'i rahim. For these three sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not wait until the afterlife. The individual sees what? Sees the punishment in this life. And what is the punishment of qat'i rahim? Shorten lifespan. Shorten lifespan, one. What is the punishment of qat'i rahim? The sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, it becomes less. The sustenance that He gives you. What is the punishment for qat'i rahim? The status that you had in the society, it ended up lowering. But look at those three sins that the Holy Prophet talked about. False judgment, or judgment not based on the Quran. What was the second one? False oath. And the third one is qat'i rahim. These three. False oath. What does false oath mean? I know we have about 5 minutes, 10 minutes before I have to be done. False oath. I swear to God I didn't do it. The kids, the youngsters especially. I swear to God I didn't do it. Even though they did it, I swear to God I didn't do it. Very calm, yes. I swear to God I didn't do it. The elders too, when they were young. Now I know they got older, they realized. False oath. One, this type of false oath. Two, a person hasn't committed any crime, but because you don't like him, there's a personal grudge against him, you go and you say that, yes, this person has done this crime. False oath, false testimony. And we have mu'mineen that do this. We have Muslimin, we have mu'mineen that do this. Why? Because they have personal grudges against the person who's been brought in front of the judge. False oath. And then qat'i rahim. These three sins, the punishment is meted out in this world. But the opposite of this, what are the benefits of silatul rahim? Because I don't want to be completely negative. What are the benefits of silatul rahim? Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, increase in sustenance is what? Silatul rahim. Longer lifespan, silatul rahim. Your dua is being accepted, silatul rahim. This is the month of Ramadan. And if there are people that aren't talking to relatives back in Pakistan, back in India, here, over here, because of the most absurd of reasons. This is the month of Ramadan. This is the month of forgiveness. And what does the Holy Prophet say? The person who forgives their brothers and sisters in faith the most, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him more than he forgives them. What do I mean? The more that you forgive your brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that he forgives your sins more. The more that you forgive, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive. The more that you hold on to, the more that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold on to, meaning that the more that he will account for. So who wants to be accounted for more? No, none of us. All of us, we're trying to be accountable for the least amount of our deeds, not the most amount of our bad deeds. So silat al-rahim. And when it comes to silat al-rahim, how is it supposed to be done? The minimum amount the Imams say is that at the very least, you say salam to your relatives. At the very least. Why? Because when you say salam, what are you doing? You're actually talking and you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send blessings on them. That's the minimum. That's the minimum. If you do that, you can get through. But is that what we're supposed to do in life? Just do the bare minimum? No. The objective is to do as much as you can. What's above this bare minimum? If they need some sort of help, meaning monetarily they need help, you help them. If they need a job and you can find them a job, you give them a job. This is above. The category that's at the top is what? Whatever is mine is his. That is the category that's at the top. Whatever is mine is my relatives also. That's the highest. What category are you at? What category do you want to be at? And I know that relatives, they anger you. They do something. Not a companion, a relative of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. A relative of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. He wanted to attack the Imam with a sword. Attack the Imam. But does the Imam cut off ties with him? No. No, he treats him the same way that he was treating him before the incident. Before the incident. You look at Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, who were the people that were reporting the Imams to the Khalifa. Some of them were relatives. Did the Imams cut off family ties? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. But what do we do as soon as something happens, especially now? Your iPhone breaks, that's it. I'm not talking to my brother. They broke my iPhone. I'm not talking to my sister. They broke my... What? It was $1,000. It was $1,200, $1,300. Your brother, your sister, their life is worth more than $1,200, for God's sakes. It's worth more than $1,000. That can always be replaced, but your family members will never be replaced. That companion of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, whose brother passed away, after he learned his brother passed away, he was crying. Why? Because that was his brother. He realized what they argued over was absolutely nothing compared to what he lost. What were they arguing over? It was the house that was left as inheritance. That's what the argument was over. And they decided to cut off family ties. A house. In the society that we live in, as soon as something like this happens, hopefully it's not in the Shia community, but in the Western communities, what happens as soon as a brother or sister they break something that is that expensive, they take them to court and have them pay for it in court. That's not where it needs to go. In Islam, yes, if you break someone else's property, you pay for it. You pay for it. But if they can't pay for it, what happens? It becomes necessary for a moment just to say, hey, you can't pay for it? Okay, I forgive you. For a moment to say that for another moment. And I'm just, this Sila Rahim that I'm speaking about, I don't have time to speak about the Sila Rahim that you have to do between the mu'mineen. This is just between the relatives. The relatives. A convert came to the Imam and he told the Mullah, my parents are not of my religion. My parents are not of my religion. Do they have any rights over me? Do they have any rights over me? The Imam, he says, yes, they do. Just because they're not Muslim does not mean that they don't have any rights over you. If they were Muslim, then their rights would have been twofold. One, for being your parents. Two, for being Muslim. For being Muslim. And what does the Imam say? He says, look, do everything they tell you to do unless it has to do with what? Tawheed. Meaning unless it has to do or they tell you to do shirk, then do not listen to them. Everything else, by all means, do. If it's contrary to what Islam says, then don't do. He asked them, do they eat pork? And he said, no, they don't eat pork. They don't eat pork. Do they drink? No, they don't drink. So then do everything that they tell you to do. And he tells him that when you do everything your mother tells you to do, before she dies, she will definitely become a Muslim and she'll pass away as a Muslim. He goes back and he treats his mother better than he was treating her when he was a Christian. Better. And the mother asks him, why is it that when you were a Christian, you didn't treat me like this, but now when you accepted Islam, you're treating me like this? Why? What did he say? He said, my master told me that this is what I need to do. This is what Islam tells me to do. And she said, if this is what Islam tells you to do, then I want to become a Muslim. She died a Muslim. She died a Muslim. So this Sila Rahim, brothers, sisters, I know I talked about it just between relatives, but between mu'mineen also. Mu'mineen also. Imam Bakr, he asked, one of the people, they came to him and they told him that they were proud. They proudly said, Mullah, we're one of your Shia. Imam, he says, that's a lie. Not only is that a lie, but not only have you lied, but you're disgracing yourself. And he goes, why? He goes, let me ask you something. The money that you have, the wealth that you have, do you like to spend it on yourself or do you like to spend it on your mu'min brother? He goes, Mullah, I like to spend it on myself than I do to spend it on my mu'min brother. He goes, no. Our Shi'as, they like to spend it on their mu'min brother more than they like to spend it on themselves. Our Shi'as. So he tells them, do not say that you're a Shia. Just say that you're someone who loves the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Why? Because the Ahlul Bayt, they love to spend it on the Shia more than they love to spend it on themselves. And when you look at any of the Imam's life, as soon as they receive money, what did they do? They gave it out. They gave it out. So where are we and where are the Imams? I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps us on the path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And if we've deviated from that path, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He brings us back onto that path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. to forgive the sins of all of those mu'mineen, mu'minat that do not have anyone to ask for forgiveness on their behalf. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Imam Zaman. Let us and our families and anyone that wants to sacrifice their life for him and his cause be able to sacrifice our lives for him and his cause. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Once again, we are in the Jafaria board, Jafaria Islamic School. We are very thankful to Qibla Sayyid Musbi for coming here to Jafaria. Inshallah, we're hoping that it's coming soon at some other time. And we pray for his long life. And आप लोग सफे बना लें ताकि हम अजान से वक्त होने वाला है.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله
الله
أكبر
أكبر الله أكبر
لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن 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 محمدا رسول الله
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
أن محمدا رسول الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
علي ولي الله
أشهد أن علي ولي الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
حجة الله
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم لا إله إلا الله العلي العظيم سبحان الله رب السماوات السبع رب الأرضين السبع وما فيهن وما بينهن ورب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Azimi wa bihamdih. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Sami'allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, 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 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala wa bihamdih. Ya wali Allah. Astaghfirullah fi الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. يا يازم يا غفور يا رحيم أنت رب الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا خير وكرمت وكرمت وشرفت وفضلت لشور. وهو شر الذي فرد الكتاب وهو شر الرحمن الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. وجعلت خير الخلق وجعلت خير من الفشار. يا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك من الذي في رغبة من النار ويمن تمن عليه وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي حجة الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. لا إله إلا الله العلي العظيم. سبحان الله رب السماوات السبع ورب الأرضين السبع وما فيهن وما بينهن ورب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا ولي العافية أسألك العافية في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم قل لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا على محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا فضيلة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا حسن مجتبى. السلام عليك يا حسين سيد الشهداء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى خال الحسين. السلام عليك يا من فضل العباس. السلام عليك يا زينب الكبرى شريكة الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد باكر. السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى القاسم. السلام عليك يا علي رضا. السلام عليك يا محمد تقي. السلام عليك يا علي نقي. السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك شريك القرآن. السلام عليك مظهر الإيمان. السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك يا إمام زمان هذا أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسحب الله مخرجك وزبورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على
السلام عليكم.
How are you? time? Right now they're 3 hours behind. It's he's probably getting ready to go to the center. Yes, tomorrow maybe like 5:30 this time. So it'll be what 30. Right now he's probably getting ready to go. How are you doing with that? Okay.
That really hurt.
I will.
Wait, isn't it supposed to be turned on? It's supposed to be turned on. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's other way. Stop. What are you touching? There's something somewhere. I don't know, it's muscle here. There's no muscle here. No, I have no muscle now. There's nothing here. Oh, it's not working. It's not working, bro. Flex, bro. Alright. Over there. It's ultra.